What's going on, you guys, and welcome back to the 13th episode of the Push the Tempo podcast. It's your boy Aray here, and I'm with my guy Kyle. And in today's episode or podcast, whatever you want to call it, we're going to be talking about the All Star selections, who got snubbed, who we believe should have been in there, or who basically is overrated and should not have been an All Star selection. So we're pretty much just going to kind of go over it, what we think about the All Star selections. So Kyle, man, right off the bat, is there anybody that you think is or should not be on that list?
No, this year is very difficult because there's so many players who definitely could have been all stars. Because just there's so many guys in the league who are having great seasons. I think everybody that made it this year on both the East and Western Conference deserves to be an all star. What about you? Do you think anybody shouldn't have made it? I know probably you do, but
I mean, there's like two or three players that I would say should not be on this team. Or, I mean, a lot of, like you said, a lot of these guys should be on the team. It's just so limited to how much people can actually be on the team. In my opinion, there's definitely some players that should have been on the list over some of the players that didn't end up making the list. So I mean, there's that. I mean, and on top of that, like a lot of players have missed a lot of games, so it's definitely interesting. I'm not 100% happy with the listings though, to be honest.
who would you? What would you change if it was up to you?
I mean, so one of the biggest things that I noticed that is that the list is really inconsistent. So we've got guys that are on, and this is something that they've been saying about the All Star game is like you got to have a lot of wins to be able to be a player. Then you've got like Bradley Beal starting, and yeah, the Wizards have won a lot of games, but I mean he was announced as a starter way back. And then you've got guys like Vucevic who are on a 12 seeded team, and he has very similar stats to Sabonis, who's basically did not make the team at all. So that's just kind of one of the things that I'm looking at. If he's a 12 seed and Sabonis is a 4 seed, little inconsistencies like that, and I think that I know I kind of jumped ahead, but that's probably the biggest snub in my opinion.
No, you're good. You definitely make a good point. I think Sabonis is a pretty big one in the Eastern Conference. Other guys are like, and when I say snub, I mean I don't, because I think everybody deserves to have made it. Even Vucevic, he's having a great season. It's not really his fault that everybody on the Magic is hurt, and he has to do what he has to do carrying wise. But a lot of these guys, like there's a lot of players who definitely have a case. In the Eastern Conference, you have guys like you said, Domantas Sabonis. There's also Trey Young, who also has a case to be an All Star. And then in the Western Conference, you have guys like Devin Booker, you have guys like De'Aaron Fox, and there's just a lot of guys who can make a case that they should have been on this team this year.
Yeah, I
Chris
definitely
Middleton,
agree with you.
sorry, Chris
Yeah, no,
Middleton
no,
as well.
Chris Middleton, yeah, definitely. Yo, we should make like an all star snub list. So
Yeah.
we've got, in my opinion, Sabonis is the biggest snub. Would you agree to that or not?
In the Western Conference, in the Eastern Conference, I would say so. Yeah. Actually, no. Yeah,
Okay.
he's the biggest snub overall. I'd say.
hmm even a guy like Jeremy Grant in the Eastern Conference, he played pretty well, but his team didn't win that many games. I wish they would show us like a list of like they give like values to these players to kind of just see where they sit, because it's really hard to kind of look at it and compare it. Just like what I mean. Like
Yeah.
I still don't understand in what world Vucevic is considered more of an all star than Sabonis, even though, like you said, he's been having a great season.
So we've been talking about it. Let's just go through the list real quick, just so if anybody doesn't know who the All Stars are in the by the because I'm pretty sure everybody knows the starters by now, but the reserves were announced yesterday. In the Western Conference, Chris Paul, Paul George, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Zion Williamson, and Anthony Davis are the reserves. Anthony Davis is hurt, and he'll most likely be replaced by somebody. I think it's. I'm pretty confident saying that that player is probably going to be Devin Booker. They're a top four seed in the Western Conference, and every other every other like top four, every other team that is in the top four, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Jazz, both have two All Stars. And then in the Eastern Conference, James Harden, Julius Randle, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, Zach Levine, Ben Simmons, and Nikola Vucevic are the reserves in the Eastern Conference. So, like I said, Anthony Davis is going to be he's going to be out. most likely for the All Star game. The Lakers said he's going to be out about 4 weeks, so he's going to be replaced by somebody. It's probably going to be Devin Booker. I think De'Aaron Fox also has a good case to be there. Before he got hurt, he was on a tear, and yeah, he's probably going to be his injury replacement just because the Suns are the fourth seed and they're playing really well as of late. I think they've won a majority of like their last 14 games. It's like a crazy percentage, their win percentage, and they're playing really well. And I think that he's gonna get it. He's gonna get in there. And a lot of people are angry that Devin Booker got that he didn't make the team initially. But there's not. I wouldn't say there's a player on that list in the Western Conference that he's been better than. I think all those guys have been better or just have been just as good or better than Devin Booker. And 10 years from now, when people look at his career, they're not going to be like, oh, this guy was an injury replacement for two of his All Star selections. They're just gonna say he's an All Star because people don't remember that like 5 years from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I agree with you. Looking at his numbers, it's nothing like spectacular. Not that he's not a bad player or anything like that. But I mean, 24 points and, 3 to 4 assists and rebounds per game is nothing crazy. Especially in the Western Conference, it's going to be tough for him to actually be named as an All Star, even though his team's winning a lot. Honestly, and this is kind of like a hot take, but if Anthony Davis is listed as like a forward, because I guess they're not doing centers anymore, shouldn't he be replaced by another forward or center?
See, I was thinking the same thing, but the forward center position. I mean, when a player is replaced, it doesn't necessarily have to be a player from that same position. And I'm pretty sure that player is picked by I think it's picked by the coach of the team this year, which is Quinn Snyder. So it's going to be interesting to see who picks that.
No wonder Rudy made it. Nah, I just played. I just played. Um, yeah, I mean, looking at their team, they only have like 2 or 3 big men. Like I forgot who the starters are. I just can't think off the top of my head. But I mean, beside Anthony Davis, there's Rudy, and then who are the starters? My bad, I can't.
No, you're good.
Nicolo.
The starters in the Western Conference, I'm going off the top of my head, are Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Kawhi, LeBron, and Jokic.
Yeah, so they've got a total of 2 big men, Rudy and Nikola Jokic, and I mean, I guess you can count Zion as well. So that's 3. That's why I just thought that they should be replacing Anthony Davis with another big man. Um, I mean, like Christian Wood's a guy that I think also got snubbed, although he didn't play that many games at all. He's been on a tear this season, and Brandon Ingram's another dude that I was looking at if they were to replace him with like another type of big man. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't. I don't think Christian Wood got snubbed. I think one, he didn't play enough games, and two, uh, he just. I don't think he was as good as even Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is having a down year, but I still think he was having a better season than Christian Wood. Not only were the, not only were the, not only were the Lakers a lot better than the Rockets, but I mean, Anthony Davis is just a more impactful player. He's a much better defensive player. Uh, and I'd say he's a better offensive player as well. So I don't think Christian Wood got snubbed, mainly because he just didn't play enough games, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree to that. I don't know if you've seen that take by Charles Barkley where he said that Anthony Davis shouldn't be an All Star at all, just because he's not having an All Star level season, and I kind of agree to that to a certain extent. I mean, without a doubt, he's definitely a superstar, but he has not been having a great season thus far, and I mean, I can kind of agree to that sentiment a little bit.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that he's not having a great season. I would still say he's an all-star. He's just been struggling with nagging injuries and such, and then one of those injuries, that Achilles strain or whatever, took him out, or calf strain as they called it, and now he's out for a while. So I think you can make the argument that he's not having the greatest season. This might be like the second or third worst season of his career so far, and he hasn't had a bad of a season as this since like his first or second year. But I think he's definitely still an all star. Plus the Lakers are, well, when it was announced they were tied for second. They're now third because they lost to the Wizards, but he's on a top three team and the best team in my opinion in the entire league when playoff time comes around, and he's a big
That's
part of
fair.
that.
That's fair. Speaking of top teams that had more than one All Star, all right. I do agree with Ben Simmons being named an All Star, even though his team is, first in their conference.
I do because I remember at the start of the year Ben Simmons was really struggling. He was really it just looked like he wasn't really playing aggressive and playing to his full potential. But since then, he's really turned it around. He had that huge game in Utah. They ended up losing, but I mean, he did really all he could. I think he had like 43, 12, and 9 or something like that. And he's followed it up with some strong performances after that as well. He's had a 28-point game and he's had a 15-point game, and his impact goes beyond the stat sheet. He does more than just score the ball because he's a fantastic defender. He's probably the most adaptable defender in the league right now. He can defend small guards and he fares well against not only forwards but also some bigs. And he also, when he's playing aggressive, this he just adds a whole new facet to the Sixers offense. Uh, if we're talking about two guys on one team, the Celtics aren't the Celtics below 500 right now, and don't they have two All Stars?
You actually did not need to mention that, but yeah, they should have three All Stars. But aside from
Okay,
Kemba, he's garbage. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of agree to you on that, or disagree with you for that Ben Simmons take. Just because, I do like Ben Simmons, and he, like you say, he does do a lot of things that are pretty impactful. But I really don't like that. A team can be first or second seed and then have two players just because of that. I think there's been players in his position or just in general that have been playing better than him in this season that weren't selected to the All-Star game. I mean, I'm just going to keep going back at it, but Sabonis is one of those guys. I also think Trae Young has been another guy on the Eastern Conference, also a guard that's been playing really well. And, I just think that it's kind of unfair just because, a team is, a top team to have like, oh, because they're a top team, they're going to have two All-Stars.
I'm gonna disagree with you on the Trey Young one. I do think that he has a good case as well to be an All Star, but I don't think he's been better than Ben Simmons this year. You can point to the point. You can look at the point totals and say, well, he puts up more points, this and that, blah blah blah. But
Yeah, no, that's
one,
fair. I was just giving like an example,
no,
but
no,
if
you're
I had
good.
to be, if I had to be honest, this team is being highly disrespected. The Pacers, Malcolm Brogdon, All Star. What you think?
At the start of the year, I was saying Malcolm Brogdon was having an All Star caliber year, but he's really tailed off since then, and he's really come back down to earth, similar to kind of what happened last year. But last year he was dealing more so with injuries, and that's one of the bigger reasons that the Pacers have kind of struggled as of late. They started off the season really hot, and now they're like just a middling team, like they've been in the past couple years. So at the beginning of the year, I would have definitely said Malcolm Brogdon was an All Star, but since then he's really cooled off. He's really cooled off, and they're just not really that great of a team. You know what I mean? I mean, not I shouldn't say not that great of a team, but they're not that elite team they were at the start of the year.
That's a fair point. Yeah, my bad for cutting you off on Trey Young. What were you saying about him?
No, 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 you're good. I just don't think I don't think. Well, Trey Young definitely has a case to be an All Star, but out of all those guys in there, particularly at the guard position, like who are you taking out for him? I'm not taking out James Harden for Trey Young. Even after James Harden's been in Brooklyn, I think he's been better than Trey Young. I'm not taking out Jalen Brown for Trey Young. Like who are you taking out to put Trey Young in there? And I'm not
Ben
taking out
Simmons.
I'm not taking Ben Simmons out either. I think being the either the second or third best player, probably second on the Philadelphia 76ers, who are the best team in the Eastern Conference. I think that has to matter for something. So I think he deserves to be in there.
Okay, that's a fair point. I kind of wish they would expand the roster a little bit more. I mean, I know the games are becoming a little bit more competitive, but it's kind of fun to see more players play. You know what I mean? Like, in particular, like playing on 2K or something like that. It's so fun to just have like a bunch of players on that roster to kind of just play because it's very limiting how much players you can have on that team, especially now where there's so much talent in the NBA.
There's just yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly it. There's so many good players now in the NBA that you can make a case for so many guys who didn't make the All Star team to be in the All Star game. Where it gets difficult is saying who they should be replacing because the guys who made it are just as deserving, if not more. So it's just very tough this year because there's so many good players. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. And like this is something I was saying earlier in this episode, but I really wish that the NBA would release some type of weighting. And I know they have like, oh, like I don't know the specific amount, but like, oh, like 40% is fan vote and this and that. But I also wish that they'd incorporate something where it shows like how much winning really matters, how much missing games really matters, and something like that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But I do think at the end of the day that if you're like a top seed in your conference, like for example, the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz have two All Stars. Rudy Gobert is definitely an All
Nope.
Star because he's so
Nope.
impactful. And without him, that they wouldn't even be a top three or they wouldn't even be a top five seed. I wouldn't even think they would be.
Bro, why are you bullshitting so hard right now?
I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm being so
Nah, I just
serious.
messing with you. I
And
just messing.
Donovan Mitchell's obviously had a great year, but like there's been games that he hasn't played and the Jazz have just continued their winning ways. There's other guys in the Jazz that I mean you can make an argument for Mike Conley. I don't think I think most of the argument comes behind the fact that he's never been an All Star and people just want him to make one. I don't think that's necessarily fair, but sure you can have that argument if you want. But I think winning should be a thing, and the Phoenix Suns will definitely get a fourth All Star. Not a fourth. I'm sorry. They'll get a second All Star because they are one of like the five best teams in the entire league in terms of record and in terms of like win percentage. So they're gonna get a second one, and it's gonna be Devin Booker, who's gonna eventually replace Anthony Davis.
Hmm. And honestly, it's so weird just because like like Chris Paul, if you look at his stats, compared to some of the other people that didn't end up making the All Star game, you would say his stats doesn't indicate that he's an All Star. But like it's all about the impact, and his team is up there 20-10, which is amazing, right? But like then you've got players that have even better stats, but they can't win, and it's just kind of weird to me, like how they structure it, and I don't know. It's just weird to me.
I more so think Chris Paul made it over, particularly over Devin Booker, if we're looking at that what's it called? Like at that aspect, because a lot of people were saying that Devin Booker should have been over Chris Paul. I don't agree with that for one of my main reasons is that
Because you're
the
biased.
that's also true.
Mm.
That's also true. But Chris Paul, in terms of its advanced stats, they really paint Chris Paul in a really positive light, which makes sense. He's high. He's very efficient. He not only doesn't turn the ball over, but he racks up large assist numbers, and he doesn't really make a lot of mistakes in games. So he's a guy that I think he made it because the impact stats. Not only that, but because like the advanced stats, and also he has the respect of a lot of players and a lot of coaches in the league because the All Star reserves are voted by the coaches, right? So I'm sure that he has a lot of their respect, which I'm sure played a big part in why he made it.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. On a side note, um, my boy Zach Levine, first time All Star. Respect. Did you think that he was gonna make it this season or not?
I think he should have. He's having a great season, man. Sure, the Bulls aren't necessarily the best team currently. I think they are as of right now. They're the eighth seed, so they're right in that. They're tied with Charlotte for the eighth seed. But he's been having an unbelievable season, man. Like he's gotten even more efficient than he was last year. He's shooting 43% from three. He's 51% from the field with a true shooting percentage of one sec, sorry, with a true shooting percentage of 64%, which is crazy. And he's just having a great season. The Bulls have dealt with not only injury, they've had guys in and out with COVID protocol. Larry Markkinen's been out. I'm not sure if he's back yet, but he's been out for a while. Wendell Carter Jr. just came back, and Zach Levine's having a great year. So I'm happy he made it because he's a fun player. You know what I mean? Athletic, he's really skilled. He's a guy he's just fun to watch, and I'm happy he's in the game.
Same. I'm pretty excited for him too, and him and Randall, first time All Stars. It's pretty nice to see some new faces on there. You know what I mean? But a guy that's been really overlooked, in my opinion, for making that All Star team is Zion. You remember how much hype he had in his first year, and it's kind of weird that it's all kind of deflating. You know what I mean?
Dude, Zion has been on a tear as of late. Like,
I know, right? It's like it's crazy because of how hyped he was his first season, his rookie season, and even before it entering the NBA. And now he's averaging like over 60% from the field. And I gotta double check that. So I'm gonna do that right now. But like he's just been a beast. He's averaging more than like 25 points a game or something like that. And it's like no one even knows.
Zion is like a lot of people are also like when Devin Booker didn't make it. A lot of people were saying that he should be in there over Zion. I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, sure, Zion's not a great defender, and he's one of the reasons that the Pelicans defense is kind of struggling. But dude, he's been on a tear, especially as of late. Like, I mean, we're probably not going to get into it, but the Celtics game, where they came back and beat the Celtics, he was a big part of that. I mean, there was like a play where he went at Tristan Thompson, and Tristan Thompson's he's been in the league for like 10 years, and he's a grown man, and he just moved Tristan Thompson out of the way. Like Zion is definitely he should be in the All Star game, not only because he's fun and that he's very athletic and does really cool shit, but he's also really fucking good, and he should be in there in my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. This is a conversation that we were having in one of our group chats where with the rest of the East Coast Brown guys, and I asked the question. I was like, "Yo, do you guys think that Zion should be in the All Star game?" And my points were just that he was shooting over 60%, which I double checked by the way, more than 25 points a game, about 7 rebounds and 3 assists, which is huge. He's also the leading scorer on the Pelicans, so in that aspect, I'm like, how could he not make the All Star game? But it all comes back to how much talent there is. And honestly, if you look at the Western Conference, do you think that so right now the Pelicans are sitting at the 11th seed? Do you think that if they were maybe the third or fourth seed, that both him and Brandon Ingram would have made the All Star game?
I mean, that's very difficult to say. I mean, one just because they're not good enough to be that good to be in that spot, but I don't know, man. That's tough because Brandon Ingram's he's not having the year that he had last year.
I mean, he's having a better year than last year.
Is
In
he
terms
really?
of stats, yeah. He's I mean, okay, he's averaging zero point 0.1 points more. He's shooting better from the field. He's also assisting better and rebounding a little bit worse. But other than that, he's been a lot more efficient in terms of shooting and his turnovers. So in that regard, he's having a better season.
I know that he's been better in terms of like passing the ball because he's had the ball in his hands more, but I'm not sure if he's been all the way better because his defense is still not really that great. You know what I mean? Uh, Similar to Durant when Durant first came into the league, he's very he's very the not only slender, but he just doesn't know he's figured out how to use his length on offense to really like get the shots he wants, but on defense he's still not that great, and he's another reason that the Pelicans defense isn't that good. So I'm not sure. I mean, if he was a top four seed, probably he'd probably be in the All Star game, but he's just not. He's just not there, and it sucks that he didn't make it because. But it goes back to the fact that there's just so many good players in the league now.
All right, so this is another one. If they were the first seed over the Jazz, do you think that this duo of Zion and Brandon Ingram would have been selected over the duo of Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell?
Bro, you're putting out all these hypotheticals that would never happen.
I'm just saying, like, what do you think? How would that selection go? Because um, if you ask me which duo has better stats, then obviously the one on the Pelicans. But if we factor in winning, then it's going to change. I just
And
want to see your
winning
opinion.
and impact because Rudy Gobert has a bigger impact than both Zion and Brandon Ingram. Yes, he
I
does.
mean, I
Yes, he
mean,
does.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't see it, man. But
Well, you're blind because he has the he has one of the biggest impacts in the league. They, yeah, we're just not gonna get into it.
yeah, definitely, because this is gonna go on a tangent. But man, are you excited for the All Star game or not? I think they're doing the similar format to what they did last year, which was pretty competitive.
I mean, a lot of the players have come out and said that they don't look forward to the game, you know. So I just hope it's because last year the All Star game was awesome. The Elam ending, the guys were really not only like was the atmosphere really cool, which is something I think is going to be missed with all the fans and such, just like
Yeah.
it is in regular games.
Even Charlie D'Amelio was there too, so we're gonna have that this year.
Oh man, what a loss! But it's tough because the players last year, you could tell they were motivated and they really wanted to not only put on a show, but they really wanted to win that game. With so many players expressing their concerns about All Star Weekend being in Atlanta, and like Atlanta is one of the places that they don't really necessarily have the stricter like health and safety protocols. Uh, like a lot of players are concerned, and it remains to be seen if they're gonna be, if they're gonna what's it called, what's the word, if they're gonna bring that same intensity that we saw last year and that everybody enjoyed because last year's All Star game was awesome. You know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't know if you've seen those interviews with like LeBron or even De'Aaron Fox. They're talking about, like they don't want to play. So there's that. And on top of that, if you don't go, you get fined. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not the same thing. Like last year, you'd want to go and play in the All Star game, have a good time. But now, because everyone's so strict in these new policies and rules or whatever you want to call it, they don't really have the same time to, go back home, enjoy the time off, stay with their family, or do whatever they want. So, I mean, I guess why they'd be less motivated to play, but I just hope it's not going to be as, not I don't want to say pathetic, but I just don't want it to be boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like we've seen in the past the All Star games that are just guys getting uncontested dunks and just open shots and like alley oops are fun, but at some point like when these guys are just like getting just being wide open and there's no defense being played, like it just gets boring after a while. Because remember a couple years ago, All Star games were like in the like 200s. Like
Yeah.
that wasn't fun to me. I don't know if it was to you, but
Yeah. Because, like, literally, I'd be watching Russell Westbrook just walk up to the 3 point line and just shoot threes, and then he'd do like, "Yo, I'm hot." I mean, it's wide open, and it would be like, honestly, it's like the end of a blowout game where you're just putting in a bunch of players that don't
like
really play that much, and they're just taking shots.
yeah, it's just not fun because there's no like really intensity. Like I understand from the player's perspective, they don't want to like this is a game that it doesn't count towards their season, like, and they don't want to play hard because they don't want to get hurt. Like if you get hurt in the All Star game, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter, like you could be costing your team and costing your team, particularly like the players on like on the better teams like LeBron and like the last couple years before last year, LeBron wasn't really trying. He wasn't really going hard on defense. Like sure he was getting like a highlight dunk once in a while, but like why would he really risk himself getting hurt when he knows he's gonna make a deep playoff run like he's done every year? Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, 100% agree with you. And I mean, I kind of, I don't know, obviously, because it's all behind the scenes stuff, but I feel like the NBA should have just, asked their players if they wanted to do it or not. And I don't know if they did or not, but it just kind of seems like they really forced this one in.
yeah, it's all about the money. That's just how it is currently, unfortunately, but that's just what it is.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough, especially, cramming in probably the world's shortest off season ever, and then just hopping right in, and no break in between. All these all star level players are just going to be there and have to play. And I'm assuming that they're going to do maybe all star, like the mini events, like the 3 point contest or a
They're
dunk
doing
contest.
it all in one night. Actually, I
Oh my
think the
gosh.
3 point contest and the skills challenge are. I think they're right before the All Star game, and then the dunk contest, which has sucked the last couple of years, before like Zach Levine and Aaron Gordon like just tore the house down. Um, I think, what's it called? Was it last year that Aaron Gordon lost to?
Yeah,
Who did he
yeah.
lose to last year?
Derrick Jones Jr. Because remember the whole D Wade thing.
Right, right. Yeah, it's I just hope that the dunk contest, like who's gonna be excited for that, you know? Like
Yeah, I heard that Zion was like teasing the media about joining or not. I would be excited to see him if he were to enter it, but I mean, who knows at this point? At this point, if players get selected to do it, I'm pretty sure they can turn this down, even if they end up getting fined or whatever. They might just do it.
right, yeah, for sure. I
Because
think I think
imagine, Sorry, my
No, go
bad. I
ahead.
was gonna say, imagine a dunk contest with no fans. How weird that would be.
I mean, I'm pretty well. It's gonna be interesting to see like what Atlanta does because I know they have some fans currently at the
Hmm.
Hawks games, but it'll be interesting to see if they have they probably will have some fans. Just
Hmm.
for like the atmosphere is kind of you can't match that with like no fans and just like pumped in crowd noise. You can't
Yeah.
like last year for example, like the Elam ending, like that was intense, and a lot of that was because like the fans were like they were on their toes like the entire like fourth quarter trying to reach that 24-point mark. So it'll be interesting
Hmm.
to see. And yeah, no, for sure. I hope it's a good game. I have my doubts about it though, but we can hope for the best.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And on top of that, I'm highly doubting that like these high level celebrities are gonna be there either. If you remember during the dunk contest, there was a bunch of like legends, like Dwayne Wade was there, Paul Pierce was also in the crowd somewhere, I believe, and all these other guys. And we also had a bunch of celebrities like Kevin Hart. He's almost always at the All Star game, and that's one of the most underrated parts, to be honest. Just kind of seeing all these celebrities interact with NBA players. If you remember that Victor Oladipo dunk with Chadwick, rest in peace. But things like that, all the small things, they were pretty hype. I think that's one thing that's going to be missing this All Star game. Even Charlie D'Amelio and Aaron Gordon, that dunk. No, I'm just playing. But all jokes aside, I feel like this is going to be one thing that we're going to be missing.
Hey man, no TikTok stars at the All Star game. Kevin Hart wearing out his welcome. Like he's at every fucking All Star game. Like I'm good on that. That's cool with me.
What? Kevin Hart is the homie, and didn't he beat like Draymond in like a 3-point contest?
Nobody cares about Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart, the homie, yo. Damn. So I'm assuming there's gonna be no celebrity All Star game either.
Yeah, thank God.
All right. You think we're good for this episode?
Yeah, I think we'll call it now.
All right, for sure. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys for listening. Leave a comment who you guys think are the biggest All Star snubs and who you guys believe should not have been in the All Star game. If you guys want to catch us, we're on Spotify, pretty much anywhere that you guys listen to your podcast at Push the Tempo Podcast with Aray and Kyle. You can also catch us on YouTube where we have some gameplay in the background under the East Coast Browncast. And that's where we do our other podcasts as well. So if you guys want to check us out, let us know. Other than that, catch you guys later and take it easy.